Okay, folks. Hello, it's me again. Hope you all are doing very, very well. And today we're talking about the movement from the Nikaya into the Mahayana tradition. And I'm going to quit after 7 minutes. This thing has cut me off after 7 minutes 3 times already. And so I'm going to try putting 2 videos up of 7 minutes each. Alright, so here we go. Fast talking. Okay. The Mahayana is a new flourishing of Buddhism. Sometimes it's thought to have occurred in sort of easy way to calculate right around 0 of the Common Era, so after about 500 years have passed. But it's sort of a creeping development that happens probably starting about 100 BCE, and then as Skildon said, the name doesn't really come up until sometime in the 3rd and 4th centuries. So it takes a while for this new name to catch on, the Mahayanas are the great vehicle, but you see the traits associated with the Mahayana tradition starting earlier. Okay, so what are we talking about? Well, remember that the early tradition talked about the fact that they had an ideal type, and that ideal type were arhats, also best translated as saint. These were people who, with the teachings of the Buddha, could become enlightened, and their goal was to attain enlightenment and disappear into everything. Oof. And the ideal activity, in many ways, was Vinaya, or the rules, to create order and an institution around the teachings of the Buddha, so that you were building something solid. You were getting money from lay people to build monasteries. You were trying to figure out how to best remember and save the teachings of the Buddha so they could be disseminated. So that's why Vinaya was so important for those guys. Now, in the Mahayana period, you have a different type of ideal person. You now have a bodhisattva, one whose sattva or essence is enlightened. And these bodhisattvas, their goal was different. They weren't just about achieving enlightenment on their own. Rather, a bodhisattva was one who could determine the place of their rebirth. So these guys, the idea was that they attained enlightenment, but then they would keep coming back until all sentient beings were enlightened. And that means bugs and animals and people and everybody. So they are seen and see themselves as being very much about being compassionate, whereas they kind of talk about this early vehicle as being kind of a selfish ideal, that you get enlightened yourself and you disappear. No, but these folks are going to keep coming back till all sentient beings become enlightened. And rather than be focusing so much on Vinaya, or institution building, well, I should say that they're focusing on another aspect of institution building, which is called dana, or giving. That's what these folks were thinking about. And not just giving in 2 ways. One, having the lay people give to them so that the monastic tradition, which has gotten quite big at this point, can be taken care of. And the idea that the monks and nuns are going to give back to the lay people through teaching and support and service and those kinds of things. Also, the path of the bodhisattva was not seen as an exclusive path like the path of the arhat, which was pretty much only available to monks. The path of the bodhisattva was open to everyone who took the bodhisattva vow. That meant monks, nuns, and lay people. And when you see the Vimalakirti Desha, or teaching, you'll be able to think more about how they are positioning lay people to be more important. Okay, now some of the new sutras are coming around the bend here at this point, and one of those is Vimalakirti. Then you have the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, the Lotus Sutras. And these sutras are ones that actually people, they magnetize people to want to worship them. Or another way you might say it is, these sutras aren't necessarily tied, really, in the same way that the early teachings were, to the founder of the tradition. Therefore, there has to be another way that they can be held up as being something very important and different and set apart, and that is by portraying them as being worthy of worship. Okay, So now another thing that becomes very important during this period, I only have 2 minutes left, is the Tathagata Garbha. Garbha means embryo, Tathagata means the Buddha, the thus gone one, literally. And the Tathagata Garbha refers to the fact that everyone is seen as having the embryo Garbha of the Tathagata Buddha inside them, and thus they already have this disposition to become enlightened, and it's just a matter of kind of shaking them awake and showing them how to achieve enlightenment that makes it so everyone is in the same way capable. Okay, now the path still takes a real long time to happen, and however, one of the things that these folks see as going along with the Tathagata Garbha doctrine is a very high emphasis on the, I'll say, doctrine of shunyata, or emptiness. And what that means is that they go back and they fight with the people in the earlier tradition who believed in svabhava, right, or anything having eternal, existent reality. Okay, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to make another one of these.